Hello and welcome to Financial Intelligence. In this video, I want to talk about the real reason why governments are opposed to Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. Government officials might claim that they are concerned about the security aspect of cryptocurrencies because terrorist organizations can use them, or they're concerned that investors might lose money by speculating on cryptocurrencies. However, these are not the real reasons why governments are opposed to cryptocurrencies. This video has three segments. In the first segment, I'm going to talk about what deflation is. In the second segment, I'm going to show you that cryptocurrencies are deflationary by nature. And in the last segment of this video, I'm going to explain that the only way for governments to be able to meet their debt obligations is to use inflation to devalue their own currencies. This is exactly the reason why governments do not want to adopt cryptocurrencies. Number one, what is deflation? We are all familiar with inflation, which occurs when the value of the currency depreciates over time. In other words, the purchasing power of the money that you have today is going to be lower next year. Deflation is the opposite of inflation. In a deflationary environment, the purchasing power of the currency increases over time, which means that you would be able to buy more stuff with your money next year than you can today. Some might argue that deflation is desirable. However, our economic systems are set up in such a way that they cannot sustain under a deflationary situation. There are multiple reasons for this that I have shared in my previous video linked here. One of them, as an example, is that deflation encourages saving over spending. Since the money gains value in a deflationary environment, consumers would be better off to delay purchasing non-essential items as much as possible. Of course, this would be unacceptable for our economic setup that thrives on consumerism. Number two, why cryptocurrencies are deflationary. In this section, I'm going to show you that cryptocurrencies by nature are deflationary. Let's take Bitcoin as an example. Bitcoin has a requirement embedded in its source code that limits its supply. There are only 21 million Bitcoins that can be mined in total. In other words, once Bitcoin miners have unlocked all the Bitcoins, no one can create new Bitcoins in the same way that you can print money. Now, why does this make Bitcoin deflationary? Consider this very simple economy as an example. Say this economy is supported by 100 Bitcoins and the economy consists of 100 similar cars at this moment. So with each Bitcoin, you can buy one car. Now, over time, the economy is going to expand and we are going to have more cars. Fast forward 10 years, say we have 200 cars because of the growing economy and still 100 Bitcoins going around. Now, each Bitcoin can buy 2 cars, which means that Bitcoin value has gone up, which is the definition of deflation. I understand that this example is too simplistic and I made a lot of assumptions here, but my point was to demonstrate how cryptocurrencies can create deflationary economies. Let's see why governments do not appreciate this aspect of cryptocurrencies. Number 3, governments and deflation. As you might know, governments all over the world have accumulated a large amount of debt over time, particularly after the pandemic. Government debts keep growing because there is no incentive for the politicians to stop printing money and be responsible with their monetary policies. You might want to check out my previous video to learn how much money we actually owe in the US. The large amount of debt has to be paid somehow by next generations. Governments are aware that they have to meet their debt obligations. They cannot simply default on their loans because that would have serious implications for the political and economical stability of the world. So, what is the best strategy to repay debt? Simply, the most optimal approach is to borrow money when its value is high and repay it when the value of the money is low. Does this sound familiar? This strategy can be deployed only in an inflationary environment. Borrowers are always better off if they can borrow when money is valuable and pay it back when it is less valuable. Let's take a look at a simple example to see why borrowers prefer inflation. Say that you purchase the house today and your mortgage payments are going to be $3,000 a month. Also assume that you have a stable job making $5,000 a month. So your mortgage payment accounts for 60% of your salary. In other words, $3,000 divided by $5,000. For the first part of this example, assume that we live in an inflationary environment. If you fast forward 10 years, you will be still making $3,000 monthly payments, but your employer has increased your salary to match the inflation rate and paying you, say, $6,000 a month instead of $5,000 a month. This is a reasonable assumption. Prices and wages usually grow at roughly the same rate in an inflationary environment. Now, your mortgage payment is 50% of your total income. In other words, $3,000 divided by $6,000 instead of 60% of your income 10 years ago. So as a borrower, you are better off today than you were 10 years ago. Now, consider the flip side. We live in a deflationary environment. So the starting point is the same, where your mortgage payment accounts for 60% of your salary. However, when you fast forward 10 years, your employer is now paying you $4,000 a month because of deflation, but your mortgage payments are still $3,000 a month. Now your mortgage payment is 75% of your total income. In other words, $3,000 divided by $4,000 instead of 60% of your income 10 years ago. So as a borrower, you are worse off today than you were 10 years ago. The reason that I brought up this example was to show you that inflation helps borrowers, whereas deflation hurts them. Since governments are net borrowers of money, they're not going to adopt any policy or any currency that is going to create a deflationary environment. Since cryptocurrencies are deflationary by nature, it is very, very unlikely that governments in the future will adopt to use cryptocurrencies as their dominant monetary tools. Governments have simply borrowed too much money that needs to be repaid. The only way for governments to be able to meet their obligations in the future is to use inflation to devalue currencies. Therefore, they have every incentive to oppose cryptocurrencies and any other type of idea that limits their ability to devalue their own debt. I hope that you liked this video. If you have any suggestions or feedback, please add them in the comment section below. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to this channel, and also hit the notification bell so that you don't miss any of my future videos. Thank you and take care.